Welcome back, everyone. This video is going to be about the episode tonight, episode 4 I believe it is, as well as the daytime feeds from today and the nighttime feeds. But before we get into that, if you would please like and subscribe. It helps my channel to grow. I appreciate all the love and support. I want to get this thing going, so if you like what you see, let me know. If you're not liking what you see, let me know that as well in the comments. And let me know what I can change up. So tonight's episode was the HOH competition. As we discussed last night in the live feeds, we already know that Chris Kirkpatrick won HOH. So we actually got to see the competition. It was called Rotten Potatoes. And basically it was like a skeet shoot. They had 3 different ones that they had to roll the ball and get a certain number, lock in their number on station 1, go to station 2, do the same thing, lock in their results and go on to 3 to get the highest score. So Chris did that. He got 75. I don't think that there was anybody even really close to him as far as score-wise. I think Lamar may have been the highest in the 60s. So Chris got the HOH and he nominated Mariah and Chris Kattan. Have not seen a whole lot of Chris Kattan in the live feeds the last couple of days. I don't know if he's sleeping. I don't know if he's just trying to stay away from everyone. Don't really know what the situation is there. But he's pretty much been in the bed. I thought they would play the POV today, but they did not. So evidently tomorrow is going to be filled with the POV competition, the POV meeting. If Mariah or Chris Kattan win and take themselves off, then a replacement nominee will have to go up. Now we were thinking that would be an easy one. Lamar, he's wanting to go home. That was last night. Today I saw a totally different Lamar. So Chris is seen at one point telling Cynthia that if either one of them come down, then he may have to put her up as a pawn, but that he doesn't really want to do that because pawns can go home too. So he's fighting that dilemma. Alright, I'm going to go over the matchups that we have right now. We have Chris Kirkpatrick and Shanna as a team. We have Misha and Todrick as a team. We have Cynthia and Carson as a team. And we have Todd and Lamar as a team. So really the outsiders are Mariah and Chris Kattan that really aren't in anything with anyone. Mariah is supposed to be in the Athletes Alliance, but she doesn't really have a person. Neither does Chris. So they're kind of just out there. So we'll see how they end up playing it. So the live feeds this morning started out with Chris and Shanna talking about the game and where everything stands. They were talking, Chris said that Todd told him that he was Misha's number 1 and that he thinks that she would pick him over Todrick. So Shanna and Chris talk about how delusional Todd is because everybody can see that Misha and Todrick are a solid duo. Cynthia talks about her targets being Misha and Todrick. And actually, Misha is her target. She's said several times today that she doesn't understand why people aren't going after Misha because Misha is the biggest target in the house. Like, she's going to beat them all athletically. And I don't understand that either. I would think that by this point, that Chris has seen what Misha and Todd are doing by trying to get him to put up Carson. They're trying to get him to do their dirty work. We see Todd, Lamar, and Cynthia talking. And Todd is upset because Mariah is spending all of her time hiding away from everyone. And he thinks that that's just putting a bigger target on her back because she's not hanging out with everyone. And Cynthia kind of has her back a little bit and says that's easier said than done. You know, when you're on the block and you're in the situation that she's in, it's very hard to say what you would do. Lamar-isms. That man is funny as hell. I have laughed at him so much because he always comes up with some of the most off-the-wall stuff. Last night, Mariah was eating ice cream and he was telling her that that didn't seem like it was an Olympian's choice of dessert. And she said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I just mean ice cream. You wouldn't think that you could see Olympians eating ice cream, but that's what she wanted to do, then go for it." And she comes back very quickly and says, "Well, thank you, Lamar, for your permission." Which he comes right back at her and he's like, "I didn't give you permission." Later on, they're all in the kitchen and they were talking about how much weight that Todd's lost since he's been in the house and that he's really looking sharp. Lamar turns around and looks at him and he's like, "Well, what do you have to do to lose that ugly?" And Todd came back with something that's kind of inappropriate, so I won't say it here, but it was funny as well. And then at one point, Todd starts talking about the banister on the stairs, that he wouldn't be leaning up against it because it didn't seem like it would be that sturdy. And Lamar said, "Oh, you're a carpenter now." And he said, "No, but I know my beams." And Lamar said, "Dude, you must be West Indian because you have 3 jobs." And of course the live feeds cut right away. They didn't want any perception of anything being said wrong against any culture or whatever. But it was funny. At one point you see Todd and Mariah upstairs in that little room that's right outside the HOH room. And Todd's trying to play checkers or chess with her and talk to her. And the subject of God is brought up. And Mariah tells Todd that she likes to believe in the universe. And he said, "Well, I like to believe in God." And she said, "How do you know he's real?" And Todd said, "Oh, I know he's real." He said, "I can tell you several times in my life where I know he's been there." And he said, he kept me from doing, he said, like the time when they were trying to give me 14 to life, and he wasn't going to let that happen. I honestly had to do some research. I did not realize that Todd Bridges had been in jail or that he had been in any kind of trouble. So then the feeds cut away and then it came back and Lamar's up there. And Mariah leaves and it's just Todd and Lamar. And Todd is upset because Mariah doesn't believe in God and he feels like you can't make it through life without a spiritual side of yourself. And that he believes it's up to the parents to teach your kids that there is a spiritual side and that you need that in life to survive. And him and Lamar are actually having a very serious conversation. And Lamar starts talking about God and that, he wouldn't be where he was today if it wasn't for God. And it was just nice to see that kind of conversation you don't normally see on a reality TV show. And I mean, they were about as real as they could get at the moment. So then it cuts to Misha and Todrick talking about the POV. Misha doesn't want to win the POV because then she has to show her cards with Mariah. Todd said he wants to win the POV, but that he won't take her off the block. So Misha's wanting to throw the competition because if she plays POV, because she doesn't want to have to make that decision and show her cards. She's still trying to get Mariah to stay. They're doing everything in their power to get Mariah to stay. So Todrick and Misha have a new angle. They've decided now that Carson wouldn't come after Misha and Todrick, that Carson would go after Misha and Chris. Because Chris has won a competition and Misha's won a competition, and therefore that makes them a bigger threat, and that he would put them on the block. So they're trying to feed this to Chris, and they're in the kitchen Of course, they're probably, talking low, but they're over in the corner of the kitchen. Other people are sitting around the table. And Chris says, well, let's take this up to the room. So Misha follows Chris up to the room, and then Todrick comes up. And they are having a discussion again about putting Carson up. If Mariah comes down, putting Carson up, backdooring him, and getting him out. Because now they're trying to tell Chris he's coming after you, to get Chris to do their bidding. Misha also tells Chris that Carson would never put up Todrick because that would make Cynthia mad, and that he wouldn't go against Cynthia. So I guess they're thinking that Cynthia has Todrick's back, or that's what they're trying to portray. But Cynthia's already seen that ship has sailed. So I don't. This is just their last-ditch effort to continue to try to get Carson on the block and Carson out instead of Mariah. I'm really hoping that he doesn't fall for it. We shall see. So then they're continuing on with the conversation, and they're saying, look, let's get out Carson this week and we can get out Mariah next week. That whoever wins HOH in their alliance, that Mariah will go up. And Todrick says that he would throw the competition because he doesn't want to be the one to put Mariah on the block. And Chris said, why not? Like, last week I didn't want Teddy to go, but I did what y'all wanted me to be a team player, and y'all are supposed to be doing what I want to do to be a team player, and I want her out. I don't feel comfortable with her here. Well, then Misha proceeds to explain to Chris why Todrick doesn't want to put her up, and how it's personal for him that he looks at her as a minority, and he doesn't want to be the one to put her up because she is a minority like him, and he just, in his heart, he doesn't want to be the one to do that. Of course, they just said in the same breath that whoever won out of their alliance next week would take out Mariah. And Chris says, well, that's a problem for me then. Basically, you're telling me you want me to do this for you, but you can't do this for me. So that's a problem for me. And so Todrick starts explaining again why he doesn't want to be the one to vote Mariah out, or be the one to put Mariah up. At which point, Chris is already mad, because last week he did what they wanted him to do, and this week they are pushing and pushing and pushing to get him to do what they want, instead of respecting his wishes of wanting Mariah out. So Todrick is going through this. Chris is mad. He's laying back on the couch. And Misha says, are you listening to him? And Chris said, yeah, I'm listening. And he goes, no. She said, okay, but you're not hearing him. Or no, she said, you're hearing him, but you're not listening to him. And it almost sounded like your mother, scolding you for not listening. That was the kind of tone that she was using with Chris. And she's like, I really need you to hear him. He's saying that he doesn't want to. But now he's saying he would for you. After he saw that Chris got so mad, then he started backtracking and saying, look, I don't want to be the one to do it, but if I have to do it, I will. So Todrick leaves out of the room. And Chris and Misha spend another hour up there hashing out everything, talking everything over. In the meantime, Cynthia and Shanna are in the chocolate room, and Cynthia tells Shanna that she's going up on the block. And Shanna's like, what? And she's like, yeah, he said that if he has to replace Mariah, that he's going to have to use me as a pawn, but that scares him because pawns can go home too. And Shanna's like, are you sure that's what he said? And she said, I'm absolutely positive that's what he said. And she said, well, I can promise you he doesn't want you out. And she said, whenever they get through with their talk, I'm going to go up and I'm going to talk to him, because I'm going to find out what's going on. But before Todrick leaves the room, in his rant about why he doesn't want to be the one to put Mariah up, he says, I've already went and campaigned to everyone in the house for her. I think that may have been the one thing that made Chris mad and made his antennas and his red flags go up. And, Misha's trying to be the moderator between the two, but she's more on Todrick's side than she is Chris's side. And it shows throughout their conversation. So when Todrick sees that it's going south and that it's not getting any better, he leaves the room. Or actually, before he leaves the room, Chris Kirkpatrick says, look, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to discuss this. I don't want to be on cameras talking about this. He's like, I have my reasons for wanting Mariah out of the house. She's my target, and that's basically the end of the discussion. He didn't want to be put in the position to have what happened last week happen again. He's got a reputation to protect. He doesn't want to be seen and be called a racist. So he's trying to not have that discussion. And Misha tells Todrick as much later on when they talk about it, because Todrick said, I don't feel like he respects my thinking and what's in my heart. And when Misha said it's not that he doesn't respect it, he just doesn't want to discuss it. She said it's hard for us as white people to know when we can say something and when we can't. And keeping that boundary is hard. What she meant by that, I really don't know, because I don't know what took place in the house before. I don't know what was said before. All we have is speculation. But she was basically trying to tell Todrick, it's hard for him as well. So after Todrick leaves the room, Misha stays up there for a good hour after that, and just rehashing everything. And they want Carson out. That's the bottom line. And Chris tells her a couple of times, we agreed to be in an alliance, he said, but then I've got Todd coming to me telling me that you're his number one. I got Todrick coming to me telling me that you're his number one. So he's basically telling her, look, you've got all these people that are coming to protect you. And that's just basically making your army stronger. He's like, that's not doing anything for my game. And he said, I know that I'm trying to be honest with you, and I'm hoping that you're being honest with me. And he's like, we never said that we would take this to the end. Basically, we said we would protect each other as long as we could, and then at some point we were going to have to start turning on each other. And he said, I don't know what the point that'll be. He's like, but when it happens, I'm hoping that you respect me enough, as much as I respect you, that we realize it for what it is in its gameplay. So I think he's basically giving her a heads up that, hey, your time's coming too. My time's coming too. And there's a time when we're going to have to make a decision. So I'm hoping that this conversation with Misha and Todrick and Chris has finally showed Chris what he needs to do. Because if it were me and I was in Chris's position right now, I would try to figure out how to get someone to win the veto, pull Chris Kirkpatrick off, and I would put Misha up. Because everybody in that house is going to vote out Misha or Todrick. I think Misha's the bigger threat. Todrick's got a hell of a social game, but he hasn't won any comps yet, although I don't know if he's throwing them. That could be a thing too. We'll see where that goes. But Misha would definitely be my number one target right now. And the fact that she's not, and that she has so many people there that are going to do their bidding for her. All right, the fact that people do not have her on their radars is scary. Because she is going to be a comp beast. She is going to be one that's going to be hard to beat all day long. So after all of that's said and done, they show Todrick and Misha in the pantry room. And Todrick's saying, look, I don't know where Chris is getting off. I told him I would support him, but I don't think that it's fair that he tells us who we need to put up on our HOH. So he's butthurt that Chris even suggested that if they didn't get Mariah out this week, that Mariah would go out next week. This whole HOH of Chris's, those two have been in his ear. Carson. Get Carson out. But he doesn't think that it's fair that Chris does the same thing to him. I'm like, how is that even possible? Like 30 minutes ago, you were telling him that he needed to put up Carson. But now you don't think he should tell you who to put up. That's not an alliance. So I'm hoping that Chris is seeing all this and that he makes a decision tomorrow that's best for his game. But I think if that decision is best for his game, it's also best for Shanna and Carson and Cynthia. Oh, and in the heat of argument, or the heat of the discussion that Chris was having with Misha after Todrick left, he didn't even hear the biggest red flag that he should have heard because he was so mad. Because at one point, Misha listed off her top 4 targets. And it was Carson, Cynthia. I'm sorry, top 3 targets. It was Carson, Cynthia, and Shanna. He should have heard that, but he was so angry, he was trying to keep it all in that he totally missed it. And I played it back and said, did I just hear what I think I heard? And I did, but he didn't. Or at least I don't know that he did. It finished out the night. Everybody went to bed. There was still Lamar, Todrick, and Mariah was awake. Everybody else was in bed. So I don't know that Shanna is going to get up there and talk to Chris tonight. But she may do it first thing in the morning. We'll see. I'm hoping that he heard that. So that he knows that they're planning on coming after Shanna. So we will see. Well, tell me what you think. Drop a comment in the comments below on who you like, who you don't like, who you'd like to see win. My top 2 right now is definitely Carson and Cynthia. I love those two, and I love them as a duo. They're just so much fun. My 3rd place winner would probably be Chris. But we'll see how it all plays out. So y'all have a good night, and until next time, as always, much love.